It has come to the end of Better Call Saul, and a bittersweet one at that. This show is among one of the greats for me, along with Breaking Bad, and in honor of that, I'm going to be doing the Breaking Bad Better Call Saul Iceberg. Spoilers ahead, you should know this. So this iceberg is going to be breaking down into shit that happened in this show, miscellaneous, characters, quotes, and community stuff. Tier 1, I'm just gonna zoom right through because you should know all this stuff. First up is Better Call Saul. Next is El Camino. Next is Say My Name, where Walter is talking to Declan in the desert and tells him,
Say my name.
Eisenberg.
You're goddamn right.
which is like, whoa, Eisenberg moment. Next is Blood Money, which is one of the really good episodes where Aaron Paul as Jesse is throwing all of the money out the window because he's so guilty of what he's done throughout this show. Next up is Face Off, which is the episode where Walter ends up initiating the plan that blows up Gus. Face Off, good episode, peak. Next up is Ozymandias, which is also peak. It's the episode where Hank dies, and it's the end of Heisenberg, Walter, all of his money gets stained by the Nazis. Next up is Felina, which is one of another goated episode. It's actually the series finale. It's the series finale where Walter ties up all of his loose ends, saves Jesse, kills the Nazis, and dies. Death. Sorry. Spoilers, man. Next up is the quote where Walter says,
I am the one who knocks.
where he says that to Skylar, and she's Skylaring. Next up is I'm in the Empire Business, where he says to Jesse, I'm in the Empire business, not the meth business, which is nice. Next is where he calls Skylar and says,
I won.
Vince Gilligan, and not much to say, he's a director, a good one at that. Heisenberg, Saul Goodman, Aaron Paul, which is the actor who plays Jesse, and I'm gonna pull this up because this is no joke. Aaron Paul DM'd one of my friends because he dressed as him for school, and it was just the most hype moment. We were all, the roof was raised, it was insane. Thank you, Aaron Paul. Love you. Next is Gus's death, which you should know because I said it before. Next is terminal cancer, which is Walt's condition. Next is Yeah Bitch.
Yeah, bitch!
Tier 2. 2 starts with a good one. Walt isn't dead, but it's not really a good one. The reasoning is that you don't really see Walter die, and people don't want the show to end, so they said Walt isn't dead, but Vince said he's dead. Next up is Gus is gay. This one is very interesting because the main reason he went to war with all of the Mexicans in Mexico is because of his partner that they killed. And when he says, explaining who his partner is, he says mi compañero, which means my partner and not my business partner, which is mi socio, I think. And it makes the show more interesting if he actually is gay, and that's his partner who he's avenging throughout the whole show. Next up is Better Call Saul foot fetish scenes, where you see Kim's feet and other people's feet a lot in the show, which people think that Vince is liking feet. Behind the scenes footage. Skylar hate. A good amount of the community doesn't like Skylar because Skylar does not let Walter make meth. How dare she? We Start Tomorrow is a quote that Walter says to Jesse saying, we start this tomorrow, cooking meth. You Got Me is one of my favorite quotes. It's because Hank is trying to deduce Gail's stuff that he had in his apartment, and one of it says WW for Walter Whitman. Then he says, or it could be Walter White, and Walter's like,
You got me.
which is so ironic because he did, but he did not, Metastases. This is a Spanish version of Breaking Bad, which is crap compared to the gold that we got.
En el juego de la vida, nada te vale la suerte, porque al fin.
It's ass. Next is Combo, which is a character that gets shot by an 11-year-old in the show. Next is I Did It For Me, which is where Walter comes back in the last episode to Skylar, and he says, instead of I did it for the family, which he's been saying the whole show, he says,
I did it for me. I liked it.
Minisodes, which is new news to me. It's 17 shorts that happen in promotion for the show. That includes Hank's wedding, Jesse's little anime short, which is so cool. A bunch of other stuff. I didn't even watch all of it because I was like, I have to do this video. I can't watch all this. I gotta do it. Gail, you should know who Gail is. This Is Not Meth is where Walter is in Tuco's room and then says,
This is not meth.
that is a scene that got me into the show, like hooked. So good. Next is Mr. Lambert, which is Walter's new identity after he calls a vacuum guy and needs to dip Albuquerque. Tier 3. So now we're on tier 3, which is Hank is not a hero, which if you know the show, no one in this show is a hero. You know, they have their faults, they have their good times, and Hank is no exception. You know, there's many times where he's being a douchebag to Marie and other people in the show. You know, he's not a hero. Rick Grimes versus Walter White is the epic rap battles of history, the YouTube channel they did. A pretty nice video of them, you know, doing their thing. Blue meth is rock candy, is something that candy makers have made in light of the show. You know, they made it as a candy that looks the same as blue sky. The real Heisenberg, just look. Jesus Christ theory. So the show draws a lot of themes from the Bible. A lot of people draw parallels to Jesse as being Jesus, as he is the one like experiencing all of this new stuff going on, the terribleness of the Breaking Bad universe. He is easily the most sympathetic and innocent, you know, that's all I can find. Breaking Bad remix, it's a song, and then the trap remix, which slaps. Walt was ready to give up. At many points in the show, I think Walt was ready to give up, but he just kept going for the family. The red key fob. This one's pretty cool because Jimmy in the first episode of Better Call Saul has the same key fob as Walter when he opens the trunk to blast all of the Nazis, which was cool. The Fly. The Fly episode had so many meanings to it, and I think it's one of the best episodes in the show. Not really, but the Fly basically means the deterioration of Walter and his family, because flies mean there's something deteriorating or disgusting happening. Tier 4. Tier 4. Do you really want to live in a world without Coca-Cola? Is when Walt is explaining how good his meth is. He's like, why would you want other meth when you could have Coca-Cola? Is basically what he's saying. Like, his meth is top notch. Breaking Bad, Rule 34. If you don't know what Rule 34 is, bless your heart. Look on the bright side is when Walter says in the school, trying to rationalize the plane crash that happened, he's like,
I guess what I would want to say is to look on the bright side.
SaveWalterWhite.com. If you guys remember Walter Jr., he makes the website to fund Walter, and it's an actual website. You can look it up. Color symbolism, there's so much to this. Screen Crush does a huge video on it, and basically sums down to Marie wears purple every episode, symbolizes her as being royalty, because every color has some symbolism to it. Walter wears brown coat with green on the inside, which shows his greed hidden inside and modernity bland on the outside. It's so cool. Walt didn't redeem himself. This is basically true, yet Walt does not redeem himself after all the shitty things he did. Jimmy's bad knees. This is supposed to have happened because of his Slippin' Jimmy pranks. His knees are so bad because he's been trying to pull schemes. The foreshadowing of Jimmy's automotive ownership. So basically in the first episode of Better Call Saul, Jimmy rolls up in his yellow trash car next to his next car, which is going to be in Breaking Bad. He pulls up right next to it, his next car. It's nice foreshadowing. Tier 5. So this next one says Felina never happened. Basically the same as Walter never died, but a little deeper. Felina never happened and it was all a dream, which I don't like when theories are like that. Like it was all a dream. Nothing. It's not real. So it's basically like Walter is like sneaking around like a ninja into Gretchen and Elliot's house, I think, and that just didn't seem realistic enough to the show, and they're like, that must be a dream. Next up is training videos. This is similar to the Breaking Bad minisodes, and I actually was caught up with these. It's training videos of Gus training his employees. It's actually pretty interesting, yeah. Next up is Walking Dead connection. Both are under the AMC umbrella, so there's a couple Easter eggs in both. So I forget the guy's name in Walking Dead, it's been a while, with the long hair, crossbow. He has a bag of blue meth, and you know, that's a nice little Breaking Bad connection. But there's an overarching theory that Gus is a zombie. He's a zombie when he got half of his face blown off, and they're like, the meth caused the apocalypse, which would be interesting, but no. Mike is a better version of Walt. This is objectively true, but I'm gonna explain why. So Mike never overstepped his boundaries like Walter, and he never got greedy with what he had. You know, he was fine being Gus's henchman, basically. Crawl space foreshadowing. This is basically the zoom out shot. It's like the same as Felina, like the end where Walter dies. The next one is a deep Reddit post that someone thinks that Vince Gilligan wrote an episode for one of his previous shows of hijackers hijacking a plane, like in 9/11. So Vince was very guilty that this inspired the attacks. So it is thought that the plane crash in the show, crashing into each other, is a metaphor for Vince's guilt, which is, I think, a little too deep. Walter White takes on characteristics of his victims. This one is pretty interesting, how when Walt killed his first victim, he liked the bread crust cut off of his bread sandwiches, and then Walter's seen later episodes doing the same exact thing. Walter didn't poison Brock. Just because we didn't see it happen, it didn't happen. Tier 6. Riverside, California. This right here was supposed to be the original setting for Breaking Bad, but I'm glad it was in Albuquerque. Malcolm in the Middle connection. This is very interesting, but not really any depth to it. It's a little theory that after Walter died, he faked his death and went to the Malcolm in the Middle universe and started doing his things as that. And there's this little clip right here.
And then there was me. And I had a shaved head and a goatee and I wore a black hat. And the only thing that made sense in the whole dream is I still walked around in my underwear.
PTSD. Multiple characters of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul have PTSD through multiple scenarios that they've been through. You know, gunfights, loss of their friend's life. You know, PTSD comes in so many forms. It's in the show. Tuco's grill matches Walter. This is the only picture that I can see that makes any sense to me. Walter White's trousers reappear. Walter, when he's in the desert rolling his barrel of cash that he has, he is seen walking by his old trousers. It's a nice little Easter egg from the first episode to now his end. Cerritos Midair Collision. This is the inspiration that made the Boeing plane crash in the show. So the Cerritos plane crash is basically the same thing, where two airplanes hit each other and like all the rubble fell on the town, just like in Breaking Bad. All right, tier 7. Tier 7 starts with this number right here, which is, if you remember, the vacuum cleaner guy that Saul and Walter called when they needed to get new identities, new house, you know, all that. And Jesse did it too. Star Trek fan fiction. This is when Badger and Skinny Pete start talking about their own fan fiction, basically in one episode. Gus 1. This is sort of a theory that everything led up to Walt's demise after Gus's death, which is basically true. Saul Goodman before the Better Call Saul episode. So the episode that Saul was introduced was called Better Call Saul, and before that episode was the series Better Call Saul. Watch it, it's dope. The Pink Bear. This is another symbolic thing in the show that shows the loss of innocence, because the teddy bear is, you know, connected to a kid, which is innocence, and that teddy bear being destroyed is the loss of innocence in Walter. Reservoir Dogs. This is a movie I did not know about, but it actually connects in the scene where Walter and Jesse are fighting. You're side by side. Tier 8. Tier 8 starts with Walt's Warning, which is a flash game that was used to promote season 2 of Breaking Bad. I didn't know about this one, but basically you'd put a picture of yourself into the game, and then Walter would like interrogate you and then end up killing you. Like, it's crazy. It's lost though. No one can find it. Walt's message. This is what I think it is. Don't do drugs. Don't sell drugs.
Don't do drugs. If you're doing it, stop it.
Mandela effect. So if you remember this, yeah, science bitch, he actually does not say this in the show. He actually says,
"Yeah, Mr. White. Yes, science."
Do you want to build a meth lab? This is a parody off of Frozen's Do You Want to Build a Snowman? It's actually pretty good. Teddy bear equals Gus. So I talked about the teddy bear before, how it shows innocence, which is basically Gus in a nutshell. He shows the outward appearance of being an innocent guy, chicken man, but he's actually a corrupt, very corrupt meth dealer. Also, both of them got burnt in half of their face, so that's a cool connection. Season 2 episode titles foreshadow the finale. So if you remember season 2, some of the titles read to foreshadow. They combine to read 737 down over ABQ, which means the plane, the 737, down over Albuquerque, which you probably wouldn't put that together, but it's cool. They put a lot of detail. Felina meaning. The final episode, Felina, is Felina, which are the symbols for iron, lithium, and sodium, which basically is blood, meth, and tears. Tier 9. Tier 9, the last tier. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. This is where it gets a little bit darker. No, a lot darker. Torture porn episode. So in the original plot of Breaking Bad, Walter was supposed to be like a maniac serial killer type thing, you know. So in the first episode or first season, it would have gone like this. Walter would have kidnapped a rival dealer, put him in his basement like he did to Crazy 8, but he would have slowly cut off fingers and tortured him, hence the thing, torture porn. Hospital tiles. In the hospitals that they visit, the tiles match the logo of Breaking Bad, which is pretty cool. I don't know why it's this low. Vince Gilligan on dollar notes. I guess in the show there's a bunch of bills lying around that have Vince's face on it, which could have been like a design detail. The 60-second element. The 60-second element is samarium and is used to treat lung cancer. Actually, I lied. There's one more tier, tier 10. Starting off with tier 10 is Kid Named Finger. This is the best thing to come out of this, like community-wise, if you know about it. Hank Simps. If you know, you know. Walter is coming to multiverses. If you've seen some of these pictures, people have made little art of him in multiverses. But I've actually heard that he might be coming to Fortnite, which is not far-fetched from what I've seen Fortnite bring. Basically, your mother's in Fortnite. Everyone's in that. Walter, put your dick away. Walter, this is another meme on Mike, the Kid Named Finger, and it's gold. Slippin' Jimmy is another show that came out of this universe. It's an animated version of Saul Goodman as a kid, and it is horrible. I have my own. This is the only one. Howard and Lalo in Breaking Bad. There's a slow, tiny little clip that you probably missed in Breaking Bad where they're going through the mega super lab and they mention that there's 2 bodies that they found unrecognized.
Where were the 2 bodies?
Over by the freight elevator. Over there.
Which could only be Lalo and Howard. That's it. Alright, and that is the end of this video. This was super fun to research stuff that I didn't know about my 2 favorite shows. And, you know, just let me know what you want me to do next. I'm just going by doing things that I like. I love it. Thank you.